Hey guys, so I want to play this clip, and I think something needs to be pointed out. They are all the same, right? When these people start talking about left wing, right wing, these are right wing. Most of the time, they're infighting. They're talking about in their own group. Let's be clear about that, right? When they're talking about um, we're on the left, they mean the left of their group. They don't mean the general left, because they're all the same. Whether it's Nazis, Israelis, Jews, KKK, white people in America, generally like all these different European colonizers, South African, Afrikaners, you know what I mean, some of these Hispanic groups in South America, these white Spaniards and Portuguese, these groups are all the same. Now, some may be more, and when they talk about right wing, they mean within their group, because there are no liberals among them, right? Or whatever. There's no everybody else is in the out group, and that means like black people, Indians, whatever. You know, any Indians as in uh, indigenous American Indians in South America. You know, like Mayan, Incans. You know, indigenous groups. You know, Aboriginal, indigenous Australians, et cetera, right? The you know dark skinned people, the original Jews, et cetera, right? There's those groups, and then there's their group, and then they infight. For instance, what I mean is like the Civil War. If you look at, for instance, the Civil War in America was basically who's going to fight to control, slavery and resources and land, and who's going to be the leader amongst the racist white groups, right? That's what the Civil War was about. It wasn't about giving freedom to, American Indians and blacks. There was infighting amongst the races, and who was the leader who was the second in charge of the Confederacy? Oh, well, that would be a white Jewish man named Judah P. Benjamin. All facts. You see? So you have to understand, and they said, we fighting for freedom. When? When the fuck were you fighting for freedom? What do you mean? So when they talk about fighting, they're talking about infighting amongst each other, as in civil wars. Just like if you go to Germany in the Holocaust, that was an infighting between white Christian Anglo-Saxons and white religious Jewish people in Germany of who was going to be in control of resources. Obviously, we know who lost that fight, which is ain't over. It's being continued at this point with Russia. You see what's going on in Russia, Ukraine. That's just a continuation under Operation Gladio. Right? So you have to understand, like, I'm gonna play this clip so you can get a better understanding. When they start talking about fighting for freedom and right wing or whatever, they all the same. Let's play this.
Described by what they're not. They're not Jewish. They're not victims. Of course, we're going to hear from corporate media that the outrage here, it's not the it's the fact that Trump is blaming this attack on Biden and his border policy. That's
This is Pod 5, the first fully immersive sleep system. Intelligent.
The political home of most Jews, including myself, cuts much deeper. And that silence is felt acutely because we've stood shoulder to shoulder in every fight for justice. And now we're asking, will you show up for us?
Well, let's talk about the discomfort there, because there are a lot of folks who are looking at what's happening in Gaza, especially what's been happening the last few days, and they're saying to themselves, Hen, that this is really tough. I mean, they're using stronger language than that. It's sick.
Yeah, I can't really say too much more than that. It's really tough.
It's horrible. I can't believe that this is still happening. I can't believe that America is involved with this. And that discomfort, that anger, it comes in the form of an outlet where they express themselves on social media, and they feel like they need to express themselves. They've got to get it out there because they're not going to stand by what's happening. How do you speak to that and also speak to what we saw yesterday, what we saw 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C., and what you say Jews are feeling
Yeah, what you say, whatever you say over there, bozo.
all around the country right now.
I think that a lot of us are feeling this pain. You know, the hostage families in Israel have been
Yes, oh yes, of course, there's they invoke hostages. Why, how did we not see this? The sausages, yes. What could be the reason? As Tom York said, what could be the reason for the sausages? Where for out our sausages, though?
in one of the most outspoken parts of Israeli society, calling to end the war. They want their family members back. And this rally was about the hostages, and it was for peace. And I think that empathy doesn't require agreement with the Israeli government's policy. In fact, you can condemn it and you can criticize the Israeli government.
Are we talking to Tom York here? Israeli activist Tom York. Thank you. This is exactly what Tom York said. We can criticize Netanyahu, but condemn Hamas. Sausages. Yisrael Chai. Stop noticing.
Many of us Jews oppose their actions today. But I think
No, actually, I don't think so. I think there was a recent poll that just was released by Penn State University that proved that 82% of Jewish Israelis support the full ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip, and a majority of them think that Amalek is a...
Exactly. So, let me pause that. So, exactly. You see? So they all the same. That's something you gotta understand. They all the same. You have to understand the distinctions they try to make. Oh no, we one of the good ones. And then when you take a poll, and the poll shows generally 82%, 85%. Oh shit, that's everybody. At that point, that's generally everybody. 85%, we like 15% disagree. And they ain't disagreeing that fucking hard. You see what I mean? They ain't that much against it. I mean, when you go back in America, you go back to the abolition of slavery, abolition of apartheid, Jim Crow, segregation. There were very few, you might have had 5% of white people, 10% might have been against. Most of them was for. These people are the same. Right? And like I said, what you see is infighting amongst those groups. Civil war. You see a civil war between white people, whether it be white Jewish people who right now have won the Civil War. They played the long game and they, won the whole Civil War amongst these racist, supremacist, Nazi, satanic groups. Who won? Obviously the Jewish faction, Israeli Jewish faction won. You look at how they treat the American government. You have to do what they say. Have to do what they say. The capital of America is not D.C., it's Tel Aviv. They try to pretend like they have some autonomy, but they don't. And only a fucking fool wouldn't recognize that. So you have to realize they all the same when you see them coming. Right? A lot of these groups, they all the same. And some of them, some of them, these fucking coconuts, you gotta recognize these coconuts as well. These pet coconuts that they got. They all the same. You gotta see them with one clear vision. You see? You have to see them with one clear vision and don't let people double talk you and be like, oh, I'm on the left wing. You're on the left wing of your inside group. You're not on, you're on a certain, but you're taking a position on the inside of your group. Right? So for them, left wing is, well, we won't genocide you, we'll enslave you. That's what they mean by left wing. Right? The Nazis are right wing. The Nazis will genocide you and implement robots. But we nice, we'll turn you into sex slaves and slave labor and we'll keep you around. Right? That's what they mean by left wing and right wing. They're talking about inside of their own groups. They're not talking about you. You say, oh, left wing, oh, he's on my side, I'm a left winger. No, you dumbass. They're not talking to you. They're talking over you and through you and around you, right? You're a fucking pawn. You're just too dumb. Most of these coconuts is too stupid to realize that. You're just a fucking pawn in a game that's being played on levels and you don't understand. Right? Or you understand it, you're just a fucking coward. Right? With lace on your panties. And I'm talking about the men, not the women. The women, on the other hand, they might be cowards, but they don't have a strap on. They're perverted degenerates. Right? Anyway, but I won't make this too long. I just wanted to cover that, right? You have to understand the different levels to this. Like I was watching this, and these guys were talking, and when you start hearing them talk about we fight for justice, and we're on this left wing and right wing, they start talking all that yang yang shit, that rah rah shit. You have to understand what they're talking about. It's just bullshit. It's garbage. You see what I'm saying? They start talking about, yeah, man, rights and all this bullshit. They don't give a damn about that. We've always been fighting for civil rights. Since when? Human rights. Since when? Since when? Because the Jews were involved with the Confederacy and slavery and, funding slavery and fighting. And they're against reparations today for black people in America. Since when? You let people cozy up to you that really, they ain't no different than their Nazi brother, their openly Nazi brethren. I mean, if you don't see that the Israelis and them Jews are a bunch of Nazis, something wrong with you. Particularly if I'm looking at a picture of my grandfather right now who lived under Jim Crow in America. My grandparents, my parents, my father, my mother, my aunts, my uncles. And then you look at these people, you don't realize that they Nazis. They talking about they fighting for justice. They being oppressed. You let them play in your face and say all this weirdo shit. They talking about fighting amongst their own group. It's a civil war. You're not in that. You're a byproduct. You're a standby, right? A bystander. They look at you as property. Who is going to own, all the resources and assets? And you are the human resource that they're looking to own. You're not their friend and their ally. You're just a pawn. You're a fucking coconut in most cases.